sloth. He's got 2 on the front and 3 on the back. All sloths have 3 toes on the back feet, so it can be a little bit confusing by saying 2-toed, but we are talking about the fronts. You don't want that piece, buddy? Where are you guys from?
We're from Illinois.
Oh, okay. So Flash is about 6 years old, a little over 6. When we got him, he was 3 years old. And we got him from a facility that was basically just observation beforehand. So he was never interacted with like this, was never even had anybody really go into his enclosure. So it took Flash a long time to warm up to us, but to where he is now, it's taken him, you know, the whole 3 years that we've had him basically to get him to the point where he is now. But now he's comfortable enough with us to come down and he'll eat out of our hands and things when he's not being picky. So I'm gonna fix up the rice here. Maybe we can do decent rice this morning.
Are we allowed to take pictures?
Yeah. Flash is about 11.5 pounds. Looks a little bigger than he actually is.
Scared that whole thing.
So I'm sure you've probably seen pictures of wild sloths, and when you see them, they've got a lot of moss and algae and things like that all down their backs.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people think when they come here that the sloths are going to stink or that they're going to be, you know, gross and have moss and stuff like that on them. But the captive sloths have never had the ability to grow that, nor do they need it, because the wild ones use that for camouflage. There's nothing that is hunting them or trying to, you know, get a hold of them here in captivity. He smells this rice. So sloths do have terrible eyesight, and because of that, their sense of smell and their sense of hearing is actually really good. So he can smell that I'm making this, and he wants some of it. Since he's being kind of picky with his veggies, I have to shred up his veggies to put in this rice mixture, make sure he gets all of it. But when you're hand fed every day, I guess you can be picky if that's what you want to do. Do you guys have any other encounters, or is it just this?
Just this one.
Yeah. Do you guys come down just for this, or are you doing something else while you're here, or while you're in Tennessee?
We're just visiting Chattanooga, and sloths have been my favorite animal for a really long time.
Yeah.
We've never been able to do anything like this before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just looking at me. Are you happy?
So if you guys want to, you can hand feed him some of this rice mixture. He'll lower down just by hanging onto his 2 back feet like he was a second ago. It makes for a really good picture if you can get up right next close to him. And he doesn't mind, you can get this close up to him and take a picture just like this.
You can do that. I was actually I put it in him.
Yep, just scoop some up there and you just give it to him.
You can't really feel it.
Their tongues are a lot softer than what people
Yeah.
think that they would be. They're not rough like a cat's tongue or anything.
Do you want to try?
No.
No, not interested.
Yeah, so all of this is for him. You can, if you don't want to hand feed it, you can hold the whole bowl up there, but it makes it go, since we've got 30 minutes with it, it makes it go just a little bit slower if you do a hand fed.
Yeah.
Hand feed like that.
Bro's reaching for it. Do you want some landscape?
Mornings are kind of prep time, so we're getting everything set up for the whole rest of the day. So sloths eat about 10% of their body weight every day, and because of that, you know, we have to have a lot of food on hand just since we've got the 3 sloths. Everything's got to be prepped and ready for little hungry gremlins the rest of the day. You know. Yep. Something kind of interesting about sloths is that it takes their digestive system 30 days to digest everything that's in it from start to finish. So obviously that food is always being replaced, but the first bite of food that he took today will take another month before it comes out the other end. And with that, sloths only go to the bathroom about every 7 to 10 days. And when they go, since it's so infrequent, they expel about 1/3 of their entire body weight.
Oh my goodness.
And that's not just solids, it's liquids as well. They wait all week long to do both, and they wait to do so until they come down to the very base of the tree. And scientists have speculated different reasons for why that could be. Some scientists say, well, maybe they're just creatures of habit, they just like to go to the same spot every time, but it would be easier to go just hanging in the tree. Sloths are already really low in energy storage, obviously, because they move extremely slow, so it would make more sense if they would just stay up in the tops of the trees. Other scientists have said, well, maybe they're just trying to fertilize their own tree by going to the same spot, using the same tree every time. But if that were the case, they could just go in the tops of the tree and their dung would come down to the, fall to the floor around the same tree and still be fertilizing the same tree that they're in. So that doesn't really make too much sense. But it makes the most sense to speculate that it's actually because of the sloth-moth symbiotic relationship. So in the wild, sloths have moths that live all throughout their fur that they do have a symbiotic relationship with, meaning that both parties benefit from it. Whereas parasitic would be just the moths would benefit and not the sloths. But they both benefit, so the sloth needs to come down to the base of the tree every time, because when they do, it repopulates the moth population on the back of the sloth. Because what happens is they come down to the base of the tree, same tree every single time, same side of the tree to the same pile that they always do, not on the other side of the tree. Because when they come down, they hold on to the base of the tree and they kind of shimmy their booty around on the ground, and that stimulates the moths that are living on the back of the sloth to come down and lay their eggs in the dung pile of the sloth. And when they do that, last week's eggs are this week's larva, and this week's larva are next week's moths. So it takes 3 weeks for the cycle to completely go around from eggs to adult moths. And if the sloth did not go back to the same spot every time, then those moths, or the eggs that eventually turn into moths, would not have a place to go back up onto the sloth. They would just not be able to survive, because the only place in the world that moth lives is on the back of a wild sloth. It cannot live anywhere else in the world, and it can't just live free in the rainforest flying around. So it's really sensitive, and it's important that the sloth goes to the same spot every time, because if they didn't, it would be able to repopulate them. And I did say that it's symbiotic, so it doesn't just benefit the moths, because the sloth goes to that same pile every time, but it also benefits the sloths. So when they groom themselves, they'll actually eat a portion of those moths that are living on them, and that's their protein source. So they'll eat a small variety of bugs and insects and things like that that are in the wild. That will be their protein source. But the most important part of the entire relationship is that they actually will lick up a portion of the moth's waste that's on the sloth's fur. And that's where they get the bacteria to be able to digest their own food. If they did not have that bacteria, which they are not born with it, they would not be able to digest their food. So it kind of beckons the question, well then here in captivity, since they don't have any moths or anything like that on them, how do they digest their food? And they actually establish that bacteria on day 3 of the sloth's life. So that when the sloth is still just a little baby, on day 3, it will lick the mother in the corners of her mouth, because when she eats, her saliva will froth up with the food that she's eating or the leaves that she's consuming, and it'll bubble up in the corners of her mouth. And when the baby smells that, and then they're kind of interested in what mom's doing up there, they'll climb onto the chest and lick that up. So the bacteria that mom has in her gut is also in her saliva. And when the baby licks that up, the baby gets just a little bit of mom's bacteria to be getting zoomies in there, to be able to start to germinate, colonate, and develop its own bacteria colony. So they don't need the moths to start the bacteria colony, because that's how they get it in the wild and in captivity the same way. But they need, in the wild, they need those moths because that bacteria that they get from the moth's waste is really sensitive to temperature changes. So if the outside temperature was to drop overnight or something like that, or the weather started doing something weird, then some of that bacteria that's in the sloth's gut could start to deteriorate. And if that's the case, all the sloth in the wild would have to do is just lick up some more of that waste on their fur from the moths, and it would replenish that stock. But here in captivity, if something weird were to happen with the weather, where we left one of their outside doors open overnight and the temperature dropped like 20 degrees, we could come back into a not alive sloth, because it could deteriorate that quickly. And so because of that, because of how sensitive their systems are, and even if we came back in and this sloth was still alive, that bacteria colony would be completely destroyed. And since we don't have the moths here, there's not a way to, get that back up. They get that first little bit from mom, but then after that, that mom's saliva is useless. It's not going to really do anything for them. So there's not a way to get that back up, which is why we always tell people that owning a sloth as a pet is an absolutely terrible idea. A lot of people will see just a little bit of our lives and see us standing here feeding a sloth, and they're like, oh my gosh, I want a sloth. Where did you get the sloths from? I want to have a sloth as a pet. And we always tell people that the sloths that we have here are not pets. They are ambassador animals, which means they serve to be education for the public. So we have all of the same licenses and accreditations as a zoo does, and we are inspected regularly by the USDA and different companies that will come out and see how we're doing things and make sure we're doing everything the right way. And the normal, average Joe can't get those type of regulations. Now, unfortunately, you don't need those type of certifications to own a sloth, and there is no illegal trade of sloths. A lot of the sloths that you can buy through the internet have been wild sloths that have been taken from the rainforest, and people don't know about it. And it's so weird to say that it's not illegal, but it's not. It should be 100%. But it is something that people down in places like Costa Rica and Guatemala, that's the way they live. That's how they make their living, is to go out and find sloths and sell them to people in the U.S.
I didn't know their living conditions were so specific.
Yeah, they're a very sensitive system, and it's not just that. It's not just the bacteria that they have in their gut. Literally everything else about a sloth is very sensitive. Their diet, their routine animals, they like to have everything done the same way every time. And they're easily stressed. And so the animals, the sloths that we have here, are not as easily stressed because they've been around people their entire lives, and they don't see people as a threat as a wild sloth would. So they're not really stressed out by us. But things like, if we had a field trip or something where there's a lot of kids, we don't let the kids come in here and see them or anything like that. And we have specific regulations now for
how many people we can have in the room and stuff like that. Just because, you know, they can get overwhelmed pretty quickly. Now Flash, you know, came from a different situation than Zoe and Dash did. You guys will get to hold Zoe here in just a little bit. But Zoe actually came from a facility where she was conditioned from a very young age to enjoy this type of interaction and enjoy being held by a person, and she actually seeks that out. To pass that ambassador test and become an ambassador animal from the program that she came from, she has to go through a final ambassador test that proves that she actually does genuinely enjoy human interaction and actively seek it out. And she does, because anytime we go in there, if I go over there and stand right next to her hammock and don't offer to pick her up, she climbs onto me. That's where she wants to be. That's where she's most happy. So it's pretty interesting to see. And obviously, if you were to go out and try to get a wild sloth from the rainforest, it would be a completely different interaction. You would probably not walk away from that looking the same. It would be essentially the difference between holding a house cat and a feral cat. So you're not going to look the same after an experience like that. Did you get full, buddy?
So when they get stressed, do they just kind of like clam up, or would they?
Sometimes, but sloths also sleep a lot, and so sometimes if he gets his belly full, he may not be stressed out from the people that are in here, maybe even just me that's in here and I'm feeding him his breakfast,
Yeah.
and then after he's done with his breakfast, he'll go over, curl up into a little ball and take a little cat nap, just because that's what sloths do. The diet that they eat is extremely low in caloric content, and it takes calories to be able to create ATP, which is the energy source to be able to move and do things. So since they have really low energy storage, they don't really have the means to be able to just be climbing around doing random things, you know, looking around, exploring. So if they're not eating and they're not sleeping, they're just resting and digesting their food. So scientists they originally had calculated that sloths slept for upwards to 20 plus hours a day. But they actually recalculated that number after doing a little bit closer research and realized that a lot of the times they thought the sloths were sleeping. They were actually just hanging there, holding onto the branch, not moving, looking like they were asleep from a distance, but their eyes were actually open. So since they don't feel like, and they don't have the means to be able to be climbing around, just exploring and things like that, they thought they were sleeping for a lot longer than they actually do. And when they're not, they're just kind of just chilling. Little animals. I did mention that they have really bad eyesight, and so their eyesight, they have a condition that's called broad monochromacy. That means that they only have rod cells in their eyes and no cone cells. So we have cone cells in the back of our eyes, unless you're colorblind, that allows us to see color. But since they lack those cells, they are colorblind. Not only that, but what they do see is not just black and white. It's basically like if you've ever watched an action movie that's shown a clip of like night goggle vision. I always got an itch. That's kind of what they see. You can't really distinguish what it is that's in front of you with a night goggle vision. You just see a blob or a shape, you know, something there. And that's kind of what they see. So he can't distinguish the difference between me or you or one of you guys, but he can hear the difference. And so he hears my voice every day, and he knows who I am, just because he's heard it so much. And so that's how they distinguish between people.
When you get done here, I'm gonna let them be outside with mom and dad with him. So that they can all do a family friendly all play.
Cool. But it's a little bit longer in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
I'll be ready when I get done.
But you can see the darker coloration that he has towards his head, where it's a little bit of a darker brown. That's what the color they start out as. You can see Dash is a lot darker, and he's starting to get his lighter coloration starting to come in. But when they're babies, they haven't had the time to be able to start to develop that moss and algae all down their backs. So they don't really have a way to camouflage in. And if they're a lot darker of a color like that, they can blend into mom's chest a lot easier, because that's where they spend the majority of the time, is right on top of mom. And then as they get older, around 4 or 5 months old, once they're weaned, then they'll start to lighten up, and they'll start to already have that moss and algae starting to grow all down their backs. And they'll start to develop that moth colony and everything from mom taking trips up and down, you know, to the base of the rainforest floor. Those moths will start to climb onto the baby as well.
Do they recognize each other by sounds?
I mean, I think they definitely have a bond with their baby up until a certain point. Since their eyesight is so poor, their sense of smell and sense of hearing is really well. So I'm sure that they have some type of a smell recognition like that. But in general, sloths are very solitary animals. If you see two sloths in the same tree in the wild, it's probably just happenstance, and they're definitely not going to be up close cuddling with each other, which is why our future plans with Dash, we only have the 2 enclosures right now, and so we're probably going to end up putting Dash and Zoe together, but they'll definitely be in the 20-foot enclosure at that point because they need to have area just to get away from each other and just, be by themselves. They came from the same breeding facility and everything, but they're not siblings. They don't have the same mom or anything like that. So, but in general, they're pretty solitary. But they do occasionally make different noises. So the females, when they become in heat, they can let out a really loud screech that sounds like a D sharp, and they'll periodically do that throughout the day until the male will eventually meet her there. And it'll be a group of males that slowly start to make their way towards that sound, but it'll just be the first male that is the lucky winner. Everybody else that shows up late to the party will just turn around and go back where they came from. So they don't fight for a mate like a lot of other mammals do. They just show up, they see they're late, and they'll turn around and go back. I think our plan in the next coming weeks is to try to eventually, this branch that he hangs on out here is just where he does his encounters, and then obviously his enclosure goes up 20 feet. He's got branches everywhere, but I think sometimes he gets kind of bored being out here for an hour is the only longest encounter that he ever does, so he can have 2 30 minutes back to back, but then he's done for the rest of the day. And so, but still an hour out here on just one branch, he gets kind of stir crazy and goes back and forth. So I think what we're going to do is wrap it around the whole rest of the entire room, that way he can climb in a circle if he wants to. What do you think, Bud? And so a lot of people wonder how they're able to hang for such long periods of time, and even do how he was earlier, which is hold on by 2 feet. And they can actually, from the moment that they're born, withstand all of their body weight hanging by just one claw holding onto a tree.
Yeah, that's.
And that's actually because they have a locking mechanism that are in their claws that are basically opposite to ours. So if I were to try to hold onto that branch with all of my body weight extended from that, it would be pretty difficult, and because I'm using muscles and tendons and ligaments to do so. But for them, clamped down is actually just a relaxed state. So he's not expending any energy right now to be holding onto that branch like he is. He says, nap time. And so that's how they're able to hold on like that and not ever get tired. They sleep, they spend their whole lives upside down unless they're coming down to use the bathroom. It's pretty interesting the way that the locking mechanism works in their forearms. So for them, all of the muscles and tendons and ligaments in their forearms are so tight that it makes just snap down like that natural for them. But for them to actually have to loosen up, let go of that branch and reach for the next branch, that's when they're using muscles and tendons and everything to open up that claw. So it's just opposite to ours. And if a sloth were to actually pass away holding onto a branch upside down in a tree, they would continue to hang there until something either knocked them out or something rotted. The locking mechanism is just, that's the relaxed state, like I said, so they're not gonna just let go. Similar to us, if we were to be put under anesthesia or something, we're not gonna all tense up all of a sudden. Our relaxed state is like this, just like theirs is holding onto the branch.
Whenever you're ready, Michaela, I can take them outside, or whenever Sloth Keeper shows up, we'll take them out to the pavilion.
All right, we're ready to head out. We're gonna do a family friendly with Mom and Dad. Welcome. And Dash after breakfast.
Flash was eating it.
Keeps me young. Keeps me young.
All right. You guys are like, why in the heck is the camera going crazy, right? We're gonna bring them out there and let you guys all kind of cuddle with Dash here. Yep. All right, if you ladies want to come sit right here at this table.
We don't ever do more than 2 at a time. So if I want to show 4, I'm
You guys stoked?
one of you, he's going to eat his breakfast. You can feed him out of your hand like this if you like. Or you can feed him out of a dish if you don't like hands to be dirty. Well, you can take all the pictures and all the video you would like.
And so I'll be up in mod. Hold your hand like this. And turn around and eat out. Pretty awesome. Who wants to go first? What? Plenty of time. So sloths have horrible vision. So they rely on their sense of smell and their sense of hearing. He gets into his food, doesn't he? And you sit like on this side, right here, it's fine. So where y'all from? Oh, okay, wow. Yeah, there you go, that's a drive. What else are you guys doing down here? Yeah. There's a lot of fun stuff to do there on Lookout. A lot of good mountain biking and rock climbing. My mom lives on Lookout and I have a house in Red Bank. And I like Red Bank because it's not downtown, but it takes 30 seconds to get downtown and it's a quarter of the price. And Lookout is really good. You guys made a smart decision by staying there during the summer. Because if you've noticed, it's like 10 to 15 degrees cooler on Lookout than down in Chattanooga. Oh, yeah. Did you eat at 1887 or whatever it is in St. Elmo yet? So at the bottom of Lookout, there's a really cool restaurant, 1887 or 85. It's like right where that incline railway is. Has outside seating. Everything is awesome. And on like Sundays, they do brunch with amazing food. And then at the top of Lookout, there's only like one restaurant, right? And that one that's on the corner, if you haven't eaten there, eat there. It's really, really good. It's like really close to a park. It's the only restaurant up there. But it's amazing. So Dash here is about 8 months old. Him and Zoe both came to us from a breeder and a vet in Florida who's been working with sloths for over 30 years. So his first sloth was injured and could not go back to the jungle. And so his mentality was kind of the same as breeding the white rhinos in captivity. It's like, don't breed them, they're going to be extinct. And so these guys are probably more removed from the jungle than we are, like the Revolutionary War, because there's like 15 to 16 generations above that sloth between the jungle. A lot of people, they're like, no, we don't want to hold a sloth because of the bugs. I'm like, no bug in that sloth because it's not in the jungle. But we still have to be really careful with his diet and monitoring it, because those bugs is what was giving them the ability to process their food. It's the bacteria. So if that bacteria falls off, you got to fix it right away. Not carrots, but sweet potatoes are grated. It looks like the same color, right? And then he'll graduate from that into more like zucchini, squash, spinach, and then he gets like a little protein goes to it. Occasionally boiled eggs, and once he gets over It's at birth. So at birth, it's getting the food in, and so if it starts to die down, or if we start to notice a different consistency in the poop, you increase the fruit because that's fructose, sugar, speeds up bacterial growth, or you decrease the amount of fructose, fruit, right? And that changes it also. If that still doesn't fix it, then you have to start going towards like probiotics, basically live cultures, and then for babies, kind of your last step is like a fecal transfer, and obviously diet change. So we consider ourselves poopologists. And on him, you can actually see his ears. Do you have your camera ready? Right there behind him. I'm gonna let you do this one now. Here. He's correct. Try the other side. They look just like ours, but the way he's leaned against her. He's done it. You see it? Yeah, they're super cute. People are always like, how do they hear? And I'm like, well, if you have long hair, can't see your ears. I was like, so Zoe, our other sloth that's about 1.5 years old, because she was our first baby, your firstborn you're a little more timid with, so she won't really let you do that with the ears because we're like, care, nurture, time, dash, we're like, you're good. Can we go ahead and switch? And if it does hurt, all you have to do is just like lightly tap on it, move it, and it's not like they're trying to hurt anything. Their relaxed state is that tap on state. They have to think to really send the optimal rest. You don't have to do a thing. You have to do So you can see how he's really starting to change color. So with Flash, you can see that he's almost white. So in January, February, he was jet black. And people were showing up to like cuddle him or get their picture. But during the winter, everybody wears black, right? And so they're like, take my picture. I'm like, looks like you have lint on you. And I was like, if you don't wear something else, you can't see it. Do a lot more talking with the adult sloth, but we find that once people are holding the baby sloth, they don't really listen anyway, so we just let them relax. If you're up on Lookout, you're not too far from Cloudland Canyon, and it's like the state park in Georgia, so you just head south on that main road that's on top of Lookout, and you come to Cloudland Canyon, and like 2 miles before there, you get to see people flying hang gliders off of the top. But Cloudland Canyon has like 3 pretty cool waterfalls, and I think it's been raining enough that there should be water coming off it. You go into right, you're like, big rock. Yeah, Cloudland Canyon, it's gorgeous. It's really cool because it just creates a complete gorge falling right off the mountain down in the valley. How did y'all find out about us? We like to know what works.
I literally didn't like to, like, do, we have a sloth experience, so I just out of curiosity, found out there's literally sloth zoo Texas.
Yeah.
It came up and I was like, wow, this is exactly perfect.
You're like, I have lived well this month. That was easy.
I mean, we didn't know about you guys at that time, but we came down 5 years ago.
Oh, okay.
We were looking at property, around Cleveland.
It was a really good deal right before COVID.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore.
It's
That's everywhere.
yeah, it's still comparatively pretty good, but like, so just north of this is like a little town called Tellico Plains, and it has like cool waterfalls and stuff. So I started kayaking up there like 30 years ago. I mean, you could buy an anchor for $500, dirt cheap. Now everybody is like 100x, which I mean, I like it if people are outside and everything. That's great, but I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, we were just talking, we actually came down in 2009. We were actually playing the outskirts of Nashville.
Yeah.
And we found a 100-acre plot that was like $108,000. We just didn't quite have the money back to that. We just came down ourselves.
Yeah, now you would have like 20 extra money.
Probably could have subdivided something.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you made a straight up subdivision or developed it,
Yeah.
heck yeah. So they're the ridge line that runs beside the Ocoee. I drive up there and do some hikes and stuff sometimes, and you can see that the developers are actually starting to find spots. And I'll go on some hikes and I'm like, that's a 360-degree view. Let's see if they cleared it. And I'm like, they're going to put in some sweet houses. So, as long as they don't ruin it. So they sleep about 15, 20 hours a day, but a lot of times while you're feeding them, once they just feel comfortable with you, they might just close their eyes and kind of relax. The reason that we don't have any three-fingered sloths is they really need to eat the leaves of the sarcopia tree, which does not natively grow in North America. They're trying to grow some in like southern Florida and stuff. People that try to have three-toed or three-fingered sloths usually doesn't go too well because they really need to eat the sarcopia trees.
What about it? It's so specific to their diet.
Just the way their genetic makeup and what they've been eating for the past however many years, right? But these guys, and also like even their vertebrae is different. Like they have more vertebrae in their spine. They have a little bit of a remnant of a tail. Their facial structure is different. Their articulation of their head is different. Like they're very different. But all of them have three toes. A long time ago, there used to be giant sloths, right? Like huge. And they were so big that they didn't go in trees. But luckily, we can thank sloths for avocados. Because at the end of their tunnels, they just dig tunnels to live in. We find just huge groves of avocado trees, like wild avocado trees. We're like, what was making this? And then when they went through the tunnels, they see like the marks and they found skeletons of like really, really huge ground-dwelling sloths. So thank the sloths for walking along. When those kids do this farm tour, they sleep back in one layer.
Just south of Wisconsin. There's the Kangaroos safari sitting there.
Yeah.
And it's a drive-through, so they give you buck your feet. And you just drive through, and there's zebra and
Yeah.
ibex and Highland cows.
You do it in your vehicle or one of theirs?
In ours or your own.
How do the animals deal with the vehicles? Like, are they pushing on
Most
them?
of them are chill. I wouldn't be downstairs.
That's because I've seen some of those videos and I'm like,
It
No,
looks,
I've
it's too
been on
intense.
this
I was like, some people have some pretty nice cars. I was like, they're really pissed.
I would have been on safari.
Strawberry cans and ostrich outbreak.
Yeah. So actually, the zebra is the one that you should be worried about. Zebras are basically like a 16-year-old boy that has no mental, they just will randomly freak out. Yeah.
Zebras are chill.
And so there's never been any zebras that have been successfully domesticated. So that old movie Stripes, you know, where they're racing the zebras, that trainer is the one who trained our camels. And he did Stripes, and so he flew zebras over there, and he said, most of those zebras that you see racing are white horses with stripes. he was like, I rode a zebra for one shot, and he goes, I'll never do it again.
As far as that goes, I mean, you can tell that they have much more.
So, interesting point. So we have two zebras, and we're going to breed up with either the horse, the pony, or the donkey. So we'll have the horse, Zony, or Zony. Yeah. So the reason people do that is so you get a domesticated zebra. Yeah. And sometimes you end up with anywhere between like 25 to 75% stripes. You're never going to get 100 stripes, but at least with some. Yeah, he doesn't really care that much. Zoe and the other ones are kind of moving around. And then on this paw right there, you might be able to reach this easier. The paw, it's kind of like leather, just like a monkey's paw. And so I kind of call that like a awesome crescent wrench, because it doesn't matter any kind of shape, like you can just hold on. In adult sloths, their claws can be huge. It can be like this big. Zoe and Flash do not like it at all. They will be like, nope, not touching me. But he's been a lot more desensitized. Because we're like, oh, it's okay, we're fine. But we're not gonna make that a little bit. Nose and definitely hearing. He's pretty small, so he doesn't like really pull in tight. But if Zoe's like wrapped around you and someone like slams the door really hard, she'll like pull in, and it's not that she's trying to hurt you, she's like trying to be safe. She doesn't know what's going on.
So you can go. Yes, exactly.
It's just funny how their connections to the river, even though basically on the ground,
And that's so it's the same as like if you don't do anything with your hand, it stays like this, right? They don't do anything, their hand stays like that. So the way their tendons and everything's set up. So if they die in the trees and they're holding on, they'll stay in the tree. Yeah.
even the fact that just, you know, it's still a river. Like,
Oh,
their
right,
arms,
yeah, yeah. They leave the tongue out so much.
I mean, it's just beautiful. Are they,
He will just like, so he'd be in his bathroom and that. They just want to be held. Like, and Zoe's the same way. Like, once she gets in your lap, then she's fine. She might want to snack a little bit, and they do move way quicker than I think most people realize. But not really play. Like, occasionally if they're playing cards, she'll reach up and try to grab the cards. And I think it's more like a curiosity thing, you know? Not like, hey, I'm trying to go for this.
just know, like, they have, like, stuff like this to, like, play with.
Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, this is obviously for the monkey, but Zoe's room, she has a ton of branches. But honestly, if we're not in there, she hardly ever moves. She'll move to come see us, and then her outside area is being finished. Flash moves her around a lot more than Zoe. Like Flash will just randomly be like, okay, I'm gonna go back in the kitchen with you guys, see how it's going. Oh, I'm gonna go outside. So it's definitely like a little bit different behavior. I stayed in Costa Rica for 2 or 3 months, and everybody's like, I'm gonna go to Costa Rica and see a sloth. I'm like, you might see one, and that's about it.
We've been there twice for not that long, but
Yeah.
probably like 20 years.
Oh yeah.
We never saw them. When we were at, they actually had lines like that going over the roads.
Mhm.
They had safe travel,
Exactly.
and we never saw them.
And so Costa Rica just made a thing where it's illegal to hold a sloth. And the reason they did that is you have so many locals that they're like, they want to make some money.
Yeah.
And they're like, I can go get a sloth and either let a bunch of people hold it or throw it out, right? So what they do is they get them out of the door and they dip them in the cage, everything, and they get them to the sloth doesn't make it very well. And so that's the reason Costa Rica was like, well, we can't monitor everything all over the place. If we just do blanket legal, then it's a lot easier.
This is a lot.
Yeah. We stayed in Terrialba a lot and paddled on like the Renaissance and the Rosie, the Bay Bay. Then we went over to Manuel Antonio on the Pacific side, and then back over to Arenal with a volcano and Ozo Azul. It's like a 15-20-foot waterfall. We were running kayaking trips, and so this one guy came and visited us from Britain, and he kind of like an accountant type guy. Oh, so you really want to run this waterfall? He's like, yeah. I was like, okay, is it gonna hurt? And I said, 100%. He goes, really? And I was like, I don't know, I was really hard. He's like, you still want to do it? He goes, yep. So we ran the waterfall. And I was like, are you okay? He goes, yeah. I was like, you want to do it again? He goes, no. I was like, are you glad you did it? He goes, yes. Take him to the bar.
Yeah, both countries have
I think it's pretty dumb. We had found a local who said that he could drive over to Nicaragua with like a 1960s FJ, like the old FJs for like $800. I was like, I'll give you the money right now. You go over there and get me that, and I will ship it back.
Yeah, it's wow.
all the old stuff, all the Suzuki.
Oh yeah.
Stuff like that, yeah. Now, I mean, where we were at, because of all the building stuff, how to start to that? The SAR, yeah, the SAR, all the flooding, also makes sense.
Yep. And even if it doesn't flood the main road, when you go to cross, you go to someone's driveway to get to their house, you might be crossing the creek.
We were, the first time we were down there, right? And we wanted to go up to Costa Rica, the national park, or Pacific Park. Across the park.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we didn't know.
You guys want to switch again? So when we went down and we knew we had to carry a bunch of kayaks, we had to set up shuttles because we were setting our own trip. And so I went up to Costa Rica, basically Craigslist, and found like a driver. And so like I'm using translation, I can figure it out. So you have to find a situation for us to get to the airport, ride. He has like an old hotel based on Central. We have 4 kayaks for 3 days. And I was like, this will work for today, but I was like, we need a different car. We showed it back up. Like this awesome Montero, like the older ones are like the 4x4 really good. I'm like, where'd you get this? He goes, a friend. And I was like, okay. So
That's the big question.
yeah. So Blackjack is donkey right there. His mom's Because you gotta kind of make sure that he's okay with just, if they just bond with just their mom, then they want everybody else to stay away. You gotta let them bond and just
So most people that come out here, like, I've never seen that, you know, that's
it's more so.
yeah.
I mean, and I get it. Like, if you've never done this, that's why you want to come do it, right? But I think the thing I like the most is the field trips from the local areas, because these kids would never be able to see this stuff. Like, either just from time or money or like exposure. So it's just great. Like, they're so happy, you know. But some people, like you're talking about, like, are they country or city? I think the one that I didn't quite understand is a couple came from Germany. And it stayed in the barn model. Does not have AC.
Like literally the loft of that barn.
I mean, it's nice in bed and stuff, but like fall, spring stuff, that makes sense. I was like, we really like horses. And I guess he liked to drive fast too, because he goes, where is Tail of Dragon? And I was like, he was like an SUV. And I was like, it's up the road. And I give him directions. You know what Tail of Dragon is? It's like this curvy thing that all the motorcycles go. You pick a nice car. I like Autobahn, I like Fresh Fast. I go there today. I was like, all right, I hope you make it back. You get to meet a lot of interesting people. Like, we have people fly here from Australia to hold the sloth, and then they see the kangaroos, and that's a funny conversation because country Australia is like, they're like, these are the biggest pests we've ever had in our lives. We don't like them. City Australia would be like, yeah, which I love. Probably gonna get a bunch of comments for saying that. Where? Oh yeah, yeah.
So all you wanted to see right, and I was like, tear up the item.
That's hilarious.
Tear up, you know, where we live, tear up garbage,
Yeah.
run it off, stuff
Yeah.
like that. And all you wanted to see right.
Did you guys see the armadillo while you were there? So there's a little armadillo that runs around. The reason we have armadillos, it's a three-banded armadillo, because the sloth, the armadillo, and giant anteaters are all part of the superorders of thorns, which means they have the ability to curl themselves up into a ball. So they all have that ability. And Baku is really cool. We call him Baku, short for Bakugan. And then the next one that we're going to get, we call Shakugan. So we're going to have some awesome meat. Those are all 7, 8, 9. So the one that fails, just coming up from the south. This guy is definitely a lot different. But it's pretty cool because they are still mammals, so the outside area is called their carapace. It's made up of keratin, same thing as like our hair and nails, and so it's warm to the touch. It's pretty neat. Yeah. The reason that the fence is like that is more so they don't go out the bottom. There is one sweet thing. I can't remember she's in there right now. She'll go over around and out. And then Tom the turkey, he will fly over, but he will go visit people at their campsites. He wants pieces of hot dog. He's the friendliest right in. There he is, yeah. There's Tom the turkey. He got rescued.
Red?
Yeah.
What's the white bird?
Peacock.
The peafowl that was on the main house up front was gorgeous.
Yeah.
My goodness. I've never seen that coloration.
I was making a video last night and I was looking at the older videos and pictures, and so molting season is coming up where they lose all their feathers, and I was looking at some of the things that Donna made before, and I was like, getting kind of set up like those feathers are really cool. It's like,
Black and green iridescent.
yeah.
Well, there was one that was like, oh, it's not like that was funky. Funky turkeys was class. We need anywhere from like 15 to 60. Depending on what's going on. There was one of them that was all right.
Yeah. So he actually likes to be picked up. He will come over and ruffle his feathers on the ground, which we know is normal for making, right? Makes all the sounds, makes his gobble all red. As soon as you pick him up and pet him, he lets blood drain out of it. And he's like, hey, I'm excited. That's when you put attention. But he follows us around all day. Oh yeah. And he'll even like follow someone around on the lawnmower. I'm like, I don't think that's good. That's that good there, dog, you know? But he's completely flattered he could leave. So the story with him is they were taking our emu eggs to the hatchery to get hatched. And Donna was up there a lot. Mom was always there and was like, take one first. I'm probably gonna eat him eventually. And she's like, it's really nice. Just follow him around there. And I'm like, like, we don't have a lot of rescues because so many people are holding animals, interacting with them. And a lot of people get a little stressed out and they're like, I don't want everything to be rescued. I'm like, I hear you. But put them in somebody's lap and we really have a lot of safety concerns. That's not always the best habit.
It's practice.
A lot of big concerns.
The wild turkeys out there, we have like giant
Yeah.
and so they'll roost and they'll figure it out.
Is this one of y'all's? Okay. I just saw it over there. I was like, do you want me to bring this? Be right back, guys.